The sun was just beginning to set over the quiet suburban neighborhood, casting a golden glow across the rows of neatly lined houses. The warmth of the evening breeze carried with it the faint scent of freshly cut grass. On one driveway, a car sat with its hood open. A young man leaned over the engine, a wrench in hand, while a little girl watched with wide, curious eyes. Beside them, a woman stood with a gentle smile, her gaze moving between the man and the child. This simple moment, ordinary in so many ways, was about to become the foundation of a story that stretched far beyond the confines of the driveway. It was not only about fixing a car but also about how the smallest acts of kindness can ripple outward, touching lives in ways we may never expect. The man's name was David. He was the kind of person who never hesitated to help others, though life hadn't always made it easy for him. His hands, rough and calloused, spoke of years of work, sometimes at jobs that barely paid the bills, sometimes at projects he took on just to keep busy. Fixing cars had always been his hobby, but in times of financial struggle, it had also become a lifeline. Standing near him was Emma, his wife. She radiated calmness, a steady anchor in David's often stormy life. Their daughter, Lily, only 7 years old, looked at her father with an admiration so pure it softened every line on his face. She didn't see the worries that sometimes clouded his eyes when he thought she wasn't watching. She only saw her hero. That day, the car wasn't just any car. It belonged to their elderly neighbor, Mr. Thompson. The old man had come by earlier in the day, his voice tinged with embarrassment, asking if David might know what to do about the strange knocking sound coming from under his hood. Mechanics were too expensive for Mr. Thompson, whose pension barely covered his needs. Without hesitation, David agreed to take a look. Now, as the wrench turned in his hand and Lily giggled at the way her dad muttered under his breath, Emma watched the scene unfold with quiet pride. She knew what this meant. She knew her husband's kindness wasn't about recognition or thanks. It was simply who he was. But this wasn't just a story about a car repair. It was about what followed. As David worked, Lily leaned closer. "Daddy, can I help?" she asked, her voice small but filled with excitement. David smiled and handed her a rag. "You can hold this for me. Every mechanic needs an assistant." Her grin widened as she clutched the rag like it was the most important job in the world. Emma laughed softly, her heart swelling at the sight of her husband teaching their daughter not only how to use tools but also how to give without expecting anything in return. When the car finally roared back to life, Mr. Thompson's eyes welled up with tears. "I don't know what I would have done without you," he whispered. "You've saved me more than just money. You've saved me worry. You've given me peace of mind." David shrugged it off, as he always did. "It was nothing," he said. But to Mr. Thompson, it was everything. What David didn't realize was how far that act of kindness would reach. A week later, Mr. Thompson was sitting at the local coffee shop when he overheard a young woman talking on the phone, her voice breaking with stress. She was explaining to someone that her car had broken down, and she didn't have enough money for repairs. Without hesitation, Mr. Thompson approached her and shared David's name, telling her about the neighbor who had helped him without asking for anything in return. The young woman, whose name was Sarah, reached out to David. She was hesitant, unsure if she could trust the kindness of a stranger. But when David welcomed her into his driveway with the same warm smile he gave everyone, she felt her worry begin to ease. David fixed her car, too, refusing payment beyond the cost of parts. Sarah left that day not only with a running car but with a restored belief that goodness still existed in the world. For Sarah, this kindness came at a time when she desperately needed it. She was a single mother, raising a little boy named Ethan. Life had been hard, and her faith in people had been shaken by too many broken promises. But David's act reminded her that not everyone took advantage of weakness. Some people, like him, gave simply because they could. That night, Sarah told Ethan about the man who had helped them. She described the smile on his face, the way he had spoken to her with respect rather than pity. "There are still good people out there," she said softly, brushing her son's hair as he drifted to sleep. "And one day, you'll grow up to be one of them." What Sarah didn't know was that Ethan carried those words with him for years. Meanwhile, back in the quiet neighborhood, Lily continued to watch her father with wide, curious eyes. She absorbed every lesson, not just about wrenches and engines but about generosity and compassion. She began to notice the small ways her parents showed kindness to others, the meals Emma cooked for sick neighbors, the way David stopped to help strangers with flat tires, the patience they both showed even on the hardest days. These moments built the foundation of who Lily would become. Years passed. Lily grew older, carrying with her the lessons of that golden evening in the driveway. She became someone who sought out opportunities to help, someone who believed in the ripple effect of kindness. In high school, when she saw a classmate struggling with homework, she offered her help. When another student sat alone at lunch, she joined them. She never thought of these acts as extraordinary. To her, they were simply what one did. What she didn't realize was that her kindness inspired others, just as her father's had once inspired her. The ripple continued. The young boy, Ethan, who had once listened to his mother speak about David's kindness, grew up with that story etched into his heart. In college, when he saw a fellow student stranded with a broken down car, he didn't hesitate to stop and help. He didn't know much about engines, but he remembered his mother's words, "There are still good people out there." He became one of them. His act of kindness that day led to a friendship that changed his entire life. That student later became his business partner, and together they built a company rooted in the values of integrity and service. And it all traced back to a single evening, a single wrench turning in David's hands. Sometimes, the world makes us believe that kindness is too small to matter, that it gets swallowed up in the noise of life. But the truth is, kindness lingers. It plants seeds in the hearts of those who witness it, and those seeds grow in ways we may never see. David never sought recognition. He never knew that the young woman he helped would raise a boy who grew into a man who would change lives. He never knew that his daughter, inspired by his example, would carry his values into her own future, touching countless others along the way. All he knew was the warmth of his wife's smile, the sparkle in his daughter's eyes, and the quiet satisfaction of helping a neighbor. That was enough for him. But for the world, it was so much more. Kindness is often mistaken for weakness, yet it is the strongest force we have. It bridges divides, heals wounds, and inspires generations. It doesn't take grand gestures to make a difference. Sometimes, it only takes a man with a wrench, a child eager to learn, and a family that believes in giving more than they take. The golden glow of that evening faded into night, but the story it set into motion continued to shine. It lived in the choices of a little girl who grew into a woman of compassion, in the journey of a boy who became a man of integrity, in the countless lives touched by simple acts of goodness passed along like a treasured gift. And it all began with kindness on a driveway. Because kindness, no matter how small, never ends where it starts.